periscope breaks the surface. Commander Samuel Dealey grips the handles, knuckles white against cold steel. Through the magnified lens, he counts 3 destroyers charging straight at USS Harder's position. June 6, 1944. Waters off Tawi-Tawi, southern Philippines, range 1,200 yards and closing fast. Dealey should dive. Every manual says dive. Every instructor at submarine school called this moment the moment you run or die. But Dealey doesn't give the order. Instead, he does something the Navy explicitly forbids. He aims his submarine's bow directly at the lead destroyer and prepares to fire torpedoes straight down its throat. In the cramped control room, 79 men hold their breath. What none of them know is that 6 miles away, hidden in the sheltered waters of Tawi-Tawi anchorage, sits the entire Japanese mobile fleet. Battleships Yamato and Musashi, 5 aircraft carriers, 13 cruisers, dozens of destroyers. The largest concentration of Japanese naval power assembled since Midway. Fire tubes 1, 2, and 3. The torpedoes leap from their tubes. 3 Mark 14s racing toward the destroyer at 46 knots. The submarine shudders. Emergency dive. Take her to 400 feet. The explosion shakes harder, so violently that men are thrown against bulkheads. Light bulbs shatter. Cork insulation rains from the ceiling. Hit. Direct hit. Above them, the Japanese destroyer Minatsuki splits in half. Her bow tears away, flooding the forward compartments instantly. 240 sailors scramble for the deck as the ship lists hard to starboard. Her propellers still spin uselessly as she begins her final plunge. 90 seconds. That's how long Minatsuki takes to disappear beneath the Pacific. But 52 men survive. 52 Japanese sailors thrashing in the water, clinging to debris, watching their ship bubble down into darkness. Among them, a 36-year-old officer named Takeshi Yamada floats on a piece of decking salt water, burning his throat oil, slick coating his skin. Takeshi commanded Minatsuki's air defense station, 11 years of experience tracking aircraft, calculating intercept angles, training young pilots how to survive combat. 43 pilots, 62 gunners, all taught the mathematics of death from above. Now he's watching his ship die, his shipmates drown, his war end in the span of a single torpedo strike. 6 hours they float. The sun climbs higher. Men die from wounds, from exhaustion, from simply giving up. Takeshi keeps counting survivors, calling out names, forcing men to stay awake. He counts 47, 42, 38. Then the horizon changes. A grey shape emerges. American cruiser, USS Indianapolis. The survivors freeze. Japanese propaganda had been clear. Americans execute prisoners, torture them. The emperor himself warned that capture meant dishonor worse than death. But Indianapolis doesn't open fire, doesn't steam past. Instead, she slows, stops, lowers boats. American sailors pull Japanese sailors from the water, one by one, wrap them in blankets, give them water. Takeshi is hauled aboard, oil slicked and shaking, expecting a rifle butt to the skull. Instead, a Navy corpsman checks his pulse, shines a light in his eyes, and says something in English. Takeshi doesn't understand. The tone is gentle, professional. 52 survivors become 52 prisoners. They're taken below deck, given clean uniforms, fed soup and crackers. Takeshi sits on a metal bench, still processing what just happened. His ship gone, his captain dead, his war over, and he's being treated like a human being. The propaganda lied. 3 days later, the prisoners arrive at Brisbane, Australia. Camp Holding Facility 7, a dusty compound surrounded by barbed wire guard towers on each corner, rows of wooden barracks baking under the Queensland sun. Takeshi steps off the transport truck, hands still bound, squinting against the glare. Around him, other Japanese prisoners mill about, some fresh captures like him. Others who've been here for months. A voice calls out in Japanese, "New arrivals, line up for processing!" Ni. Takeshi turns. The speaker is a Japanese naval officer, Captain Shiro Nakamura, 42 years old, face like carved stone, eyes that hold no warmth. Nakamura walks down the line, inspecting each new prisoner. When he reaches Takeshi, he stops. Name and rank. Lieutenant Takeshi Yamada, Air Defense Officer Destroyer Minatsuki. Nakamura's eyes narrow. Minatsuki, Sunk June 6th by American submarine. Yes, sir. How many survivors? Well, 52. Out of 240. Nakamura's voice drops. You floated while your shipmates drowned. You allowed Americans to capture you. You're wearing their uniform. Takeshi says nothing. There's no answer that won't sound like excuse or justification. Nakamura leans closer. The Emperor does not forgive cowardice, Yamada. Remember that. He moves on, but Takeshi feels the weight of those words settle into his chest like lead. The barracks are crude but functional. Wooden bunks, thin mattresses, a single window facing west. Takeshi claims a corner bunk, stores his few possessions, and tries to understand his new reality. He's alive, his shipmates are dead, and he's surrounded by men who may consider him a traitor simply for surviving. That first night lying on his bunk, Takeshi hears distant thunder, or maybe artillery. He can't tell anymore. The sounds of war blend together after 11 years. He thinks about the students he trained, young pilots eager to prove themselves. Boys, really. 18, 19 years old. He'd taught them how to dive bomb, how to calculate wind drift, how to lead a moving target. How many of them are still alive? How many became kamikaze? The questions keep him awake until dawn. Morning brings routine, roll call at 0600, breakfast of rice porridge and weak tea, work assignments. The Geneva Convention requires prisoners to be treated humanely, but it also allows them to be assigned labor details. Takeshi is assigned to the carpentry shop. Makes sense. He'd mentioned on his intake form that he knew basic woodworking. His father had been a furniture maker in Tokyo before the war. The shop sits at the eastern edge of camp. Sawdust and heat and the smell of cut pine. An American sergeant oversees the work. He speaks no Japanese. The prisoners speak no English. Communication happens through gestures and demonstration. They build crates, dozens of them, hundreds, shipping containers for supplies headed to the front lines. Each crate Takeshi assembles will eventually hold ammunition or medical supplies or food rations for American soldiers fighting his countrymen. The irony isn't lost on him, but it's better than sitting idle, better than thinking too much. 2 weeks pass. Takeshi settles into the rhythm of camp life. Wake, eat, work, eat, sleep, repeat. The monotony is almost comforting. No decisions to make. No responsibilities beyond following orders. Then on June 19th, everything changes. It starts with the air raid siren. A sound Takeshi knows intimately. That rising wail that means aircraft inbound hostile contact, imminent seconds to react. He's in the carpentry shop when it sounds. The American sergeant yells, something points toward the shelter. The prisoners drop their tools and run. But Takeshi doesn't run to the shelter. He runs outside. Old habits. 11 years as an air defense officer means your body moves before your brain catches up. You run toward the threat, not away from it. He bursts into the open compound and looks up. 3 aircraft, twin-engine bombers, Japanese, flying low over the bay heading straight for Brisbane Harbour. And beyond them in the distance 6 more aircraft in formation. Kamikaze strike force. Takeshi's mind shifts into combat mode automatically. He counts aircraft estimates, altitude calculates approach vectors, 1,500 feet, speed approximately 200 knots, diving angle 38 degrees. They're targeting the harbour. The American ship's moored there. A guard tower opens fire. Twin 50 caliber machine guns rattling away. Tracers arc up toward the lead aircraft. Too slow. The gunners leading the target wrong, firing where the plane is instead of where it's going to be. Takeshi watches the tracers pass behind the aircraft by 50 yards, watches the plane continue its dive untouched, watches it drop lower, lower, heading straight for a destroyer moored at the main pier. The math plays out in his head unbidden. Distance divided by speed equals time. But you have to subtract 0.8 seconds, the human reaction delay. The gap between seeing and doing. Nobody taught American gunners that. They're aiming pure firing where geometry says to fire. But geometry doesn't account for the nervous system's processing time. The lead aircraft drops even lower. 400 feet now, 300. The destroyer's deck guns are firing but missing wide. too wide. Takeshi knows exactly what's about to happen. The aircraft will strike amidships just behind the forward turret. The explosion will rupture fuel lines and magazine storage. Secondary detonations will follow. The ship will sink in less than 5 minutes. He knows because he trained pilots to do exactly this. The plane descends. 200 feet, 100, and Takeshi realizes something that makes his blood run cold. He recognizes the flight pattern, the specific way the pilot adjusts pitch and yaw in the final approach. It's a technique Takeshi himself developed and taught to his students back in 1942. That pilot down there, seconds from death, learned to fly from him. The aircraft strikes the destroyer just behind the bridge. The explosion is massive. A fireball erupts, climbs 200 feet into the air, rains burning debris across the harbor. The destroyer lists immediately, already taking water. Men are jumping overboard, running across the deck toward the stern, screaming orders that can't be heard over the secondary explosions. Takeshi stands in the prison yard watching his teaching kill American sailors. The second aircraft follows, targets a cruiser. The cruiser's guns fire but miss. Same problem. Same incorrect lead calculation. The plane strikes near the waterline. Another explosion, more fire. The third aircraft veers off brakes formation. Something's wrong with it. Smoke trails from one engine. It arcs up trying to gain altitude, then rolls inverted and plunges into the bay half a mile from shore. The remaining 6 aircraft circle high overhead, assessing. Then they turn north and vanish into cloud cover. The raid is over. Lasted 90 seconds. 2 ships burning. Estimated casualties unknown, but certainly dozens, dead, hundreds, wounded. And Takeshi knows with absolute certainty that American air defense doctrine is fatally flawed. He knows because he understands both sides. He trained the attackers. He can see the defenders' mistakes. He knows exactly what's wrong and exactly how to fix it. The question is whether he tells anyone. That night he doesn't sleep, can't sleep. Lies on his bunk, staring at the ceiling, replaying the attack frame by frame, counting the gunners' errors, calculating how many lives could have been saved if those gunners knew what he knows. Captain Nakamura's words echo in his mind. The Emperor does not forgive cowardice, but what's more cowardly, keeping silent while men die or helping the enemy. There's no good answer. Both choices lead to dishonor. He's still wrestling with the question when morning comes. At breakfast, he notices the camp has changed. The guards are tenser, more weapons visible. The American soldiers move with the heightened alertness of men who just watched friends die. After breakfast, Takeshi returns to the carpentry shop, picks up his saw, tries to focus on work. 10 minutes later, an American officer enters the shop. The sergeant snaps to attention. They exchange words. The officer points at Takeshi. "You, Yamada, come with me." The officer speaks Japanese. Not fluent, but competent. His accent suggests he learned it academically rather than immersion. Takeshi sets down his saw and follows. They walk across camp toward the administration building, a 2-story structure with actual glass windows and a roof that doesn't leak. Officer country. Takeshi has never been inside. Prisoners don't go to administration unless there's a problem. They climb the stairs down a hallway. The officer knocks on a door marked with American letters Takeshi can't read. A voice from inside says something. The door opens. The office is small but organized. A desk covered in papers and maps, filing cabinets, a fan turning slowly in the corner, moving hot air around without cooling anything. And behind the desk, a man in his late 40s with grey threading through his hair and eyes that have seen too much. He wears the insignia of a lieutenant commander. His nameplate reads Stockwell. Harlan Stockwell looks up when Takeshi enters, studies him for a long moment without speaking. Then he dismisses the escort officer, waits for the door to close, and says, in careful Japanese, "Sit down, Lieutenant Yamada." Takeshi sits. The chair is wooden and uncomfortable, designed for short conversations. Stockwell opens a folder. Inside, Takeshi can see his intake documents, personal information, service record, items confiscated upon arrival, including his notebook. Stockwell slides a page across the desk. It's one of Takeshi's diagrams, aircraft approach angles, velocity calculations, intercept mathematics. Someone has translated the Japanese annotations into English. "We found this among your belongings," Stockwell says. "You're an air defense specialist." It's not a question. "Yes, sir." 11 years experience training pilots and gunners. "Yes, sir." Stockwell leans back in his chair. The fan oscillates briefly, directing air toward them, then away. "Yesterday, 9 aircraft attacked Brisbane Harbour. 2 of our ships were hit. 47 men are dead, another 112 wounded." He pauses. "I watched from my office window, watched our gunners miss shot after shot, watched those planes come in untouched." Takeshi says nothing. What can he say? Stockwell continues. "Then I thought about your notebook, these calculations, these diagrams, and I wondered if you knew why our gunners keep missing." The question hangs in the air between them. Takeshi could lie, could claim ignorance, could say he's just an officer who took notes, nothing more. But Stockwell isn't stupid, and Takeshi is tired of lying to himself. "Your gunners are aiming pure," Takeshi says quietly. "They calculate where the aircraft will be and fire at that point, but they don't account for human reaction time, the delay between decision and action." How long is that delay? 0.8 seconds on average for trained gunners under combat stress. Stockwell absorbs this. And if we accounted for that delay, your hit rate would improve significantly. How significantly? Takeshi does the math in his head. Your current success rate against diving aircraft is approximately 11%. If your gunners adjusted for reaction delay, that rate would increase to somewhere between 60 and 70%. Stockwell's expression doesn't change, but something shifts behind his eyes, a calculation of his own. 47 men died yesterday, he says. If our gunners had a 70% hit rate, how many would have lived? Takeshi already knows the answer. He worked it out last night while staring at the ceiling. Approximately 32. The silence that follows is heavy. Outside, someone shouts an order. Boots crunch on gravel. The normal sounds of a military base. Finally, Stockwell speaks again. "I need you to teach our gunners what you know." Takeshi's stomach tightens. "I'm a prisoner of war, sir, not a traitor. I'm not asking you to betray your country. I'm asking you to save lives." Stockwell opens another folder, slides a photograph across the desk. It's a young man in navy dress uniform, 19, maybe 20 years old, bright smile, whole life ahead of him. "My son," Stockwell says. "Ensign William Stockwell, served on USS Aaron Ward, killed June 15th when a kamikaze struck his battle station." His voice remains level professional, but the grief underneath is palpable. He was 19, never fired a shot, just stood at his post and died when a plane came in too fast for the gunners to stop. Takeshi looks at the photograph, sees himself at that age, sees his students, sees Hiroshi and Kenji and all the other young men who learned to fly and then learned to die. "The pilot who killed my son was probably 19 too," Stockwell continues, "probably trained by someone like you, taught to dive at exactly the right angle at exactly the right speed, because that's what wins battles and honors the Emperor." He closes the folder gently. I don't want revenge, Yamada. I want this war to end, and every kamikaze we shoot down is one less pilot who has to die, one less ship that burns, one less father who gets a telegram." Takeshi's hands are shaking. He clasps them together to hide it. "If I help you," he says slowly, "my own people will consider me a traitor. Captain Nakamura already suspects I'm weak. If he discovers I'm actively assisting the enemy, Nakamura doesn't need to know. This stays between us. He'll find out. Men talk, rumors spread. Then we'll be careful." Stockwell leans forward. "Listen to me, Lieutenant. I'm not asking you to choose between your country and mine. I'm asking you to choose between death and life. Between watching men die when you could have saved them or doing something that might actually end this goddamn war faster. By helping you kill my countrymen. By teaching us to defend against an attack that kills both sides. Every kamikaze pilot who succeeds dies in the process. Every ship that burns takes hundreds of sailors down. This isn't a zero-sum game, Yamada. Everyone loses when a kamikaze gets through. Takeshi knows he's right, has known since yesterday. But knowing doesn't make the choice easier. I need time to think. We don't have time. There are reports of another strike force forming up in the Philippines. Could hit Brisbane again within 72 hours. Stockwell's voice hardens slightly. 47 men died yesterday. How many more have to die while you're thinking? The words hit like a physical blow. Takeshi closes his eyes, sees Hiroshi's face, the student who couldn't master level flight but excelled at diving runs. Dead now, probably. Flown into a ship somewhere, 19 years old and erased from existence. How many more Hiroshis are out there? How many more boys who learned to fly from officers like Takeshi, who trusted their instructors to prepare them for combat, not suicide? He opens his eyes. If I do this, he says carefully, I teach defense only, how to shoot down aircraft. I don't provide intelligence on bases or strategies or future targets, just the mathematics of interception. Agreed. And if anyone asks, I'm being interrogated, not cooperating. You're extracting information through approved methods. Stockwell nods slowly. I can work with that. Takeshi takes a breath, commits to a path he can never walk back from. Your gunners are using the wrong equation. They calculate distance over speed to get time, but they need to subtract 0.8 seconds from that result. That's the correction factor for human reaction under stress. And Stockwell pulls over a notepad, starts writing. Walk me through it step by step. And just like that, Takeshi crosses a line he never thought he'd cross, begins teaching the enemy how to kill his own people more efficiently. The betrayal feels like drowning. But somewhere in the Pacific, a 19-year-old pilot is climbing into a cockpit for the last time, and maybe, just maybe, Takeshi's mathematics will give someone the chance to shoot him down before he crashes into a ship. Save the pilot by killing him faster. A cleaner death than burning alive in wreckage. The logic makes sense, only because nothing else does anymore. They work through the afternoon. Takeshi draws diagrams, explains velocity calculations, breaks down the geometry of interception into components simple enough for gunners with high school education to understand. Stockwell asks good questions, takes detailed notes, occasionally checks Takeshi's math against examples working through scenarios on paper. By 1600 hours, they have a working manual, 15 pages of annotated diagrams and step-by-step procedures for calculating lead against diving aircraft. We'll start training tomorrow, Stockwell says. I'll bring in gunnery instructors. You'll teach them the theory. They'll adapt it to practice. And what do I tell the other prisoners? Nakamura will notice I'm gone from work detail. B. Tell them you're being interrogated about Japanese air tactics, which is technically true. Stockwell meets his eyes. I'll make sure the guards rough you up a bit when you return. Nothing serious. Just enough to sell the story. Takeshi almost laughs. Almost. You've thought this through. I've been thinking about it since I read your notebook 2 weeks ago. So this wasn't spontaneous. Stockwell had been planning this conversation, waiting for the right moment. Yesterday's attack provided that moment. Takeshi should feel manipulated, probably does. But he also feels something else. Relief. The decision is made. No more wrestling with it, no more lying awake, counting the cost of silence. He's chosen, for better or worse. One more thing, Stockwell says. Eventually we'll need to test this in the field. Real combat situation. If the math works the way you say it does, I want you there to verify it. No, you want me on an American warship. I want proof that this works before we roll it out fleet-wide. Can't do that from a classroom. The absurdity of it almost makes Takeshi smile. A Japanese prisoner of war serving as a consultant aboard an American destroyer, helping them shoot down Japanese aircraft. If anyone back home could see him now, they'd call for his execution without trial. When? Soon? Maybe 2 weeks? Depends on intelligence reports. Stockwell closes his notebook. For now, get back to your barracks. I'll have the guards put on a show when you leave. Make it look convincing. Takeshi stands. His legs feel weak. Exhaustion hitting all at once. Commander, he says, one question. Go ahead. Why me? You could have found another Japanese officer willing to cooperate. Why take the risk with someone who might refuse? Stockwell considers this, then points at the notebook still lying open on his desk. Because your math is beautiful, clean, elegant. Anyone can teach tactics, but you understand the underlying principles. You don't just know how things work, you know why. He pauses. And because when I read your annotations, I saw someone who cared about getting it right. Not for glory, not for promotion, just because precision matters. He's right. Takeshi has always been that way. His father taught him furniture making as a boy. Measure twice, cut once. Every joint must be exact, every angle precise. That mindset carried into his military career. Precision matters, especially when lives depend on it. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet. What we're doing could get us both killed. You, by your people. Me, by mine if they decide I've compromised operational security. Stockwell stands, extends his hand. But if it works, we might save a few thousand lives. That's worth the risk. Takeshi shakes his hand. The gesture feels strange, formal. Two enemy officers agreeing to work together because the math demands it. They walk to the door together. Stockwell opens it, calls for the guards. Two American soldiers enter, young men, both of them. They look at Takeshi with undisguised hostility. Stockwell speaks to them in English. Takeshi catches a few words. Prisoner. Interrogation. Resistant. One of the guards grabs Takeshi's arm roughly. The other shoves him toward the door. They walk him down the hallway, down the stairs across the compound. Other prisoners watch from barracks windows. Nakamura stands near the mess hall, arms crossed, observing everything. When they reach the prisoner area, one guard pushes Takeshi hard. He stumbles, catches himself. The other guard delivers a carefully aimed punch to his ribs, not hard enough to break anything, just hard enough to bruise, to hurt, to look real. Takeshi drops to his knees, gasping. The guards say something in English, probably cursing him. Then they walk away. Other prisoners emerge from barracks, help him stand, ask what happened. Interrogation, Takeshi manages. They wanted information about air tactics. I told them nothing. Nakamura approaches, looks Takeshi up and down, assessing. They beat you for silence. Yes, sir. Did you break? No, sir. Nakamura's expression is unreadable. He studies Takeshi for a long moment, then nods once. Good. Remember who you serve, Lieutenant. He walks away. Takeshi lets the other prisoners help him to his bunk. They offer water sympathy. Tell him he did the right thing. If only they knew. That night, lying in darkness with his ribs aching, Takeshi thinks about the path he's chosen, wonders if there's any way it doesn't end in disaster. Probably not, but 47 men died yesterday. And if his mathematics can prevent that from happening again, maybe the disaster will be worth it, maybe. He closes his eyes and tries to sleep. But sleep doesn't come easily. Instead, he lies awake, calculating, not trajectories or intercept angles, just simple arithmetic. 47 American sailors dead. 32 could have lived with better gunnery. 32 fathers, sons, brothers going home instead of to the ocean floor. Against that, his honor, his loyalty, his place in the only culture he's ever known. The equation doesn't balance morally. But mathematically, 32 lives saved is 32 lives saved. He thinks about his father's workshop in Tokyo, the smell of sawdust, the careful precision of measuring wood-cutting joints, fitting pieces together into something useful and beautiful. His father would be ashamed of him now. Teaching the enemy. Betraying the emperor. Or would he? His father's philosophy was simple. Do the work well, regardless of who benefits. Create something of value. Precision matters more than pride. Takeshi doesn't know anymore, doesn't know what honor means when both choices lead to death. He finally drifts off around 0300. Dreams of falling aircraft and burning ships, dreams of his students' faces as they dive toward American guns, dreams of mathematics that solve for death but never for peace. Dawn comes too quickly. He wakes stiff, bruised, dreading what today brings, but he rises, washes his face with cold water from the basin, prepares himself. Today he becomes what he swore he'd never be. Today The equations begin. The training begins at 0600. Takeshi stands in a warehouse converted into a classroom. 20 American sailors sit on folding chairs, arms crossed, faces hostile. They know he's Japanese. They know their friends died 3 days ago. They don't know why they're being forced to listen to a prisoner. Lieutenant Commander Stockwell stands at the front of the room. Gentlemen, this is Lieutenant Yamada, former Air Defense Officer, Imperial Japanese Navy. For 11 years, he trained the pilots and gunners who've been killing us. 43 pilots, 62 gunners, all taught by this man. Stockwell's voice is flat factual. He's going to teach you why you keep missing. The room erupts. Voices raised in anger. One sailor stands up, face red. You want us to learn from a Jap. My brother died on the Arizona. Sit down, petty officer. Stockwell's voice cuts through the noise like a blade. Your brother died because we didn't know what we were doing. If you want revenge, learn from the man who trained the pilots who killed him. Learn how they think, then shoot them down. The logic is brutal, effective. The sailor sits down. The room goes quiet. Stockwell nods to Takeshi. Your turn. Takeshi steps forward. His ribs still ache from yesterday's staged beating. He keeps his posture straight despite the pain. You are missing because you are aiming at where the aircraft is, he says, in careful English. His accent is thick, but understandable. You should aim at where the aircraft will be, but this is not enough. He turns to the chalkboard, draws a simple diagram, aircraft diving at angle, gun position, trajectory lines. Distance divided by speed equals time. This is basic mathematics. You already know this. He writes the equation. But there is one variable you are not calculating. He pauses, makes sure every eye is on him. 0.8 seconds, the delay between when your brain sees the target and when your finger actually pulls the trigger. Your nervous system is not instant. It takes time to process, to decide to act. For trained gunners under combat stress, this delay averages 0.8 seconds. One of the sailors raises his hand. That's it, that's your big secret. Mathematics is never secret, only ignored. Takeshi draws another diagram. When aircraft dives at you, your eye sees target. Your brain calculates intercept point. Your brain sends signal to your finger. This entire process takes time. Not much time, but enough time that the aircraft has already moved past where you aimed. He turns back to the sailors. Yesterday, you fired at the correct geometric point, but by the time your bullets reached that point, the aircraft had already flown through it. Your bullets arrived 0.8 seconds too late. They hit empty air while the aircraft continued to its target. The room is silent now. Hostile faces shifting to something else, understanding maybe, or the beginning of it. Another sailor speaks up. How do we fix it? Subtract 0.8 seconds from your time calculation. This gives you an earlier firing point. Fire before the geometric intercept. Your bullets and the aircraft will arrive at the same location at the same moment. He taps the diagram. Not behind, not ahead, together. What if the plane is faster or slower than we think? Then you adjust based on observation. Combat is not perfect mathematics, but approximate mathematics is better than no mathematics at all. For the next 3 hours, Takeshi walks them through scenarios. Fast targets, slow targets, steep dives, shallow approaches. For each scenario, he shows the calculation, shows where American gunners typically aim, shows where they should aim with the correction factor applied. The sailors take notes, ask questions. Gradually, the hostility fades, replaced by professional curiosity. These are men who want to survive, want their ships to survive. If a Japanese prisoner can teach them that, they'll swallow their pride and listen. By 0900, they're working problems on their own, calling out scenarios, calculating solutions, checking their work against Takeshi's diagrams. Stockwell watches from the back of the room, takes his own notes. At 1000, he calls a break. The sailors file out. Some glance at Takeshi as they pass. Not friendly exactly, but not hostile either. Professional acknowledgement. When the room empties, Stockwell approaches. You're a natural teacher. I have done this before. Different students, same mathematics. How many of your 43 pilots are still alive? The question cuts deeper than any staged punch. I do not know. Perhaps none. Perhaps a few. Takeshi stares at the chalkboard. The ones still alive are probably flying kamikaze missions now. The mathematics I taught them to survive combat are being used to ensure they die. Stockwell nods slowly, doesn't push further. We're taking this to the gunnery range this afternoon. Live fire exercises. I want you there to observe. And if someone recognizes me, if word spreads that a Japanese officer is training American gunners, we'll keep you at a distance. You'll observe through binoculars from the command post. The gunners won't know you're watching. It's a reasonable precaution, but Takeshi knows the truth will come out eventually. Secrets don't stay secret in military camps. Too many people, too many eyes. Still, for now, they maintain the fiction. The afternoon session takes place at the coastal gunnery range 5 miles from camp. A mock-up destroyer deck with twin 40mm Bofors guns. Target sleeves towed by aircraft at various speeds and altitudes. Takeshi stands in the observation post with Stockwell and 2 gunnery instructors. Below them, sailors man the guns, the same men from this morning's classroom session. First run is baseline, one instructor explains. Standard engagement protocol, no corrections. The tow plane appears on the horizon, starts its run. The target sleeve trails behind on a 300-foot cable. The gun crew tracks the target, fires, traces arc up, pass behind the sleeve by approximately 40 yards. Miss, the instructor calls. Deflection error, second run. Same result. Bullets trailing the target, third run, another miss. The instructor turns to Takeshi. Now show them your method. Takeshi picks up the radio, speaks in English to the gun crew below. Calculate intercept as normal, then subtract 0.8 seconds from time. This gives earlier firing point. Fire at that point. Understand? Understood. Fourth run. The plane makes its approach. This time, Takeshi watches the gun crew more carefully, sees the moment they track the target, sees them make the calculation, sees them adjust. The guns fire, the traces converge on the sleeve, fabric shreds, the sleeve tears in half, fluttering down toward the ocean. Direct hit. The instructor's voice carries genuine surprise. Fifth run, another hit. Sixth run, hit. 7 consecutive hits out of the next 10 runs. The gunnery instructors are silent, staring at the results log. 7 hits with the correction factor versus 0 hits without it. Jesus Christ, one of them whispers. It actually works. Stockwell turns to Takeshi. What was their hit rate before? 11% against diving targets in combat conditions. And with your correction, these are ideal conditions: daylight, calm weather, predictable target path. Combat will be harder. Takeshi pauses. But I estimate 60 to 70% success rate with properly trained gunners. 60 to 70%. Stockwell's voice is quiet. Do you understand what that means? The kamikaze campaign has been succeeding because we can't stop them. If we can shoot down 7 out of every 10 aircraft. He doesn't finish the sentence. Doesn't need to. That evening back at camp, Takeshi lies on his bunk while other prisoners eat dinner. His ribs hurt. His head aches. But more than that, his conscience weighs on him like physical pressure. 7 hits. 7 targets destroyed. If those had been real aircraft instead of target sleeves, 7 pilots would be dead. 7 students who learned to fly from someone like him. The door opens. Captain Nakamura enters, walks directly to Takeshi's bunk. You were gone all day again. Interrogation. Same as yesterday. And the guards beat you again. Yes, sir. Nakamura's eyes narrow. Strange, you have bruises from yesterday, but no new ones from today. Takeshi's blood goes cold. They focused on questions today, less physical persuasion. Convenient. Nakamura leans closer. What questions did they ask? Air defense tactics, target acquisition procedures, standard interrogation topics. And did you answer these questions, Lieutenant? No, sir. No. Nakamura's voice drops to a whisper. Then why do they keep bringing you back if you give them nothing? They would try different methods, harsher methods. But instead you return each day with fewer bruises and more trips to the American command building. Another prisoner appears in the doorway, then another. Word has spread. Nakamura's interrogation is drawing an audience. Takeshi sits up slowly, meets Nakamura's gaze directly. "Are you accusing me of collaboration, sir?" "I am observing patterns, drawing conclusions." "Based on what evidence?" "Based on 11 years of military service. I know when a man is hiding something." The room is silent. Every prisoner watching, waiting. Takeshi makes a decision. Risky, possibly fatal, but necessary. "You want evidence? Look at my ribs." He lifts his shirt. The bruises from yesterday are vivid, purple-black. "You want to know what they asked?" "They asked about kamikaze tactics, pilot training, attack angles, and I told them nothing because I am not a traitor." He stands, steps closer to Nakamura despite the pain. "You lost your command when your battleship was sunk. I lost mine when Minatsuki went down. We are both prisoners, both survivors. The difference is I am not looking for someone to blame for my dishonor." Nakamura's face darkens. "Careful, Lieutenant. You want to maintain face by calling me a collaborator, fine. Report me to the Americans. Tell them I refuse to cooperate. See what happens." It's a bluff, a dangerous one. If Nakamura actually reports him, Stockwell will have to either expose the cooperation or let Takeshi be punished. Either option ends the training program. But Takeshi is gambling that Nakamura's pride won't allow him to seek help from American captors. The two men stare at each other. Seconds stretch. Finally, Nakamura steps back. This conversation is not over. He turns and walks out. The other prisoners disperse slowly, return to their bunks. Takeshi sits down heavily. His hands are shaking. That was too close. 3 days later, Stockwell sends word. They're moving to Phase 2, real combat test. Takeshi is escorted to the administration building under the usual pretense of interrogation. Inside Stockwell's office, a map is spread across the desk. Philippine Sea, shipping lanes marked in blue, enemy positions in red. Intelligence reports a kamikaze strike force forming up here. Stockwell points to an airfield marked on the map. Estimated 20 to 30 aircraft. Target is likely our supply convoy departing Brisbane tomorrow. Tomorrow, Takeshi leans closer, studies the map. That is very fast response. The Emperor wants to disrupt our supply lines before the Mariana invasion. Every ship we lose now is one less ship supporting the landing force. Stockwell looks up. We're assigning extra destroyer escorts to the convoy. USS Monson will be the primary anti-air defense vessel. And you want me on Monson? I want you on Monson. The gun crews have had 3 days of training with your correction factors, but they've never used it in real combat. If something goes wrong, I need you there to adjust the math in real time. Takeshi sits down, processes this. A Japanese officer on an American warship during combat operations. Technically, you'll be a civilian consultant. We'll issue you American clothing, no insignia. If anyone asks, you're a ballistics expert from the University of Sydney. My accent will give me away immediately. Your accent is Japanese. There are American citizens of Japanese descent. Not many in the Navy, but enough that it's plausible. Stockwell closes the folder. This is completely voluntary, Yamada. I can't order you to do this. If you refuse, you go back to the carpentry shop and we proceed without you. And if I agree, then you're risking your life. If Monson is hit, you die with everyone else. If we're captured, the Japanese will execute you as a traitor. If something goes wrong and my superiors find out, I'll be court-martialed and you'll be thrown in a punishment cell. The risks are enormous, the benefits unclear. But Takeshi thinks about yesterday's gunnery range. 7 hits out of 10. Thinks about 47 sailors dead in Brisbane Harbour. Thinks about all the young pilots who won't have to die if American gunners can actually shoot them down. Quick deaths, not burning alive in crashed aircraft. I will go, Stockwell nods. No surprise, he'd already known the answer. Monson departs 0600 tomorrow. We'll bring you aboard at 0530 before the crew fully musters. You'll stay in the fire control station with the senior gunnery officer. No unnecessary movement, no interaction with crew beyond essential communication. Understood. One more thing. Stockwell pulls out a document. If you're killed in action, this letter explains your contribution. I've sealed it and left it with my executive officer. If I die too, he's instructed to forward it to Pacific Fleet Command. And if we both survive, then we burn the letter and pretend this never happened. Takeshi almost smiles. Almost? The next morning before dawn, a truck takes Takeshi to the docks. He wears civilian clothes, dark slacks, white shirt, a cap to shade his face. The guard who escorts him says nothing, just deposits him at the gangway and leaves. USS Monson towers above him, Fletcher-class destroyer, 376 feet of grey steel, 5-inch guns, 40mm Bofors, 20mm Oerlikons, torpedo tubes, depth charges, a ship built for one purpose, killing. An officer waits at the top of the gangway, Lieutenant Eugene Whitfield, 29 years old, gunnery officer, the man whose crews Takeshi has been training. You're the consultant. Whitfield's voice is neutral, professional. Yes. Commander Stockwell says you know what you're doing. I know mathematics. Mathematics better be enough. Whitfield turns. Follow me. They walk through narrow passages, up ladders, past sailors preparing for departure. A few glance at Takeshi, most ignore him. Just another civilian contractor. The war is full of them. The fire control station is a cramped compartment near the bridge. Maps, radio equipment, fire control computers, rangefinders. Everything needed to coordinate the destroyer's weapons. You stay here, Whitfield says. Don't touch anything unless I tell you to. Don't talk to the crew unless they ask you a direct question. When the shooting starts, you give me corrections and I relay them to the gun crews. Clear? Clear. Good. Whitfield checks his watch. We depart in 15 minutes. Convoy rendezvous at 0700. Expected contact with enemy aircraft around 0900 if intelligence is right. Intelligence is often wrong. Yeah, usually in ways that get us killed. Whitfield picks up a headset. But today we've got your magic math, so maybe we don't die. The sarcasm is thick, but underneath it Takeshi hears something else. Hope. Monson departs on schedule, joins the convoy 12 miles offshore. 8 cargo ships, 4 destroyer escorts. Enough firepower to discourage surface attack. But against aircraft, especially, kamikaze firepower means nothing if it can't hit. Takeshi stands in the fire control station, watches the ocean through the viewport. The sky is clear, visibility excellent, perfect conditions for an air attack. He thinks about the pilots who might be out there right now. Young men climbing into cockpits, running through pre-flight checks, thinking about honor and duty and the Emperor, thinking they're about to die gloriously, not knowing that the mathematics of interception have changed. 0845. The radio crackles. Radar contact. Bearing 090, range 40 miles, multiple aircraft. Estimate 20+ bogies. Whitfield keys his microphone. All gun crews to battle stations. This is not a drill. Alarm bells ring throughout the ship. Sailors sprint to their positions. Hatches slam shut. Monson shifts from cruising configuration to combat readiness in under 2 minutes. Takeshi's heart pounds. His mouth goes dry. This is real, not target practice, not theory. Real aircraft flown by real pilots coming to kill real sailors. And he's about to help kill them. Whitfield looks at him. You ready, consultant? Takeshi nods. Can't trust his voice. Good, because here they come. The radar operator calls out updates. Range 30 miles, speed 210 knots, altitude 8,000 feet, descending. Takeshi does the math automatically. Distance divided by speed. Subtract 0.8 seconds. Factor in descent rate. They have approximately 8 minutes before visual contact. All crews report ready, Whitfield announces. Bofors gunners, remember your training. Wait for the correction. Don't fire until you have solid lock. The minutes crawl past. Takeshi watches the radar screen, watches the contacts creep closer. 20 miles, 15 miles, 10 miles. Visual contact. The lookout's voice cracks. Multiple aircraft, high altitude, bearing 085. Takeshi moves to the viewport, squints against the sun. There, dark specks against the blue, growing larger. He counts them. 17 aircraft, twin-engine bombers, standard kamikaze formation, and in the lead position he recognizes the flight pattern. His chest tightens. He taught that formation, developed it himself in 1942, called it the six-petal flower because the aircraft arranged themselves in a circular pattern, then dove from multiple angles simultaneously to overwhelm defensive fire. Whoever is commanding that strike force learned from Takeshi's manual. Their splitting formation, the radar operator calls. 6 groups, 3 aircraft each except the lead group with 5. Whitfield curses. They're going to hit us from 6 different vectors at once. Yes, Takeshi says quietly. That is the purpose of the formation. Can we stop them? If your gunners remember the correction factor, if they fire disciplined, if they trust the mathematics. That's a lot of ifs. War is built from uncertainties. Mathematics provides the only certainty we have. The aircraft descend, 7,000 feet, 6,000, spreading into their attack pattern. The convoy's other destroyers open fire, 5-inch guns booming, shells bursting in the sky, black puffs of flak expanding and dissipating, all of them miss. The aircraft weave through the flak like it's not there. Because the defenders are aiming pure, no correction factor, no subtraction of reaction time, same mistakes that killed 47 men in Brisbane. Whitfield watches the other destroyers' gunfire fail. Looks at Takeshi. Your turn. Don't let us down. The first group of kamikaze breaks from the formation. 3 aircraft diving at steep angle, heading straight for one of the cargo ships. Takeshi grabs the microphone, speaks in English. Forward Bofors crew, target Group 1, range 4,000 yards, speed 220, dive angle 40 degrees, calculate intercept. Subtract 0.8 seconds, fire when ready. The 40mm guns swing toward the targets. Track, adjust, fire. The guns hammer out streams of tracers. The bullets arc up, converge. The lead aircraft flies directly into the stream. The fuselage shatters. The plane breaks apart mid-air. Flaming debris tumbles toward the ocean. Hit, direct hit! Whitfield's voice carries shock and exhilaration, but there's no time to celebrate. 2 more aircraft still diving. Adjust 3 degrees left. Same calculation. Fire. The guns track, fire again. Second aircraft hit, explodes, rains burning metal into the sea. Third aircraft pulls up trying to evade. Too late. The gunners adjust. Fire. Hit. All 3 aircraft down. 0 hits on the convoy. Around the fleet, other gun crews watch. Start adjusting their own firing solutions. The second wave attacks. 6 aircraft, coming from a different angle. Takeshi runs the calculations, calls out corrections. Whitfield relays to the gun crews. 4 aircraft shot down. 1 slips through, crashes into a cargo ship's stern. Explosion. Fire, but the ship doesn't sink. Damage control teams respond. Third wave? 5 aircraft. By now, every gun crew in the convoy has caught on. They're all using the correction factor, subtracting reaction time, firing early instead of on target. Aircraft fall from the sky like birds, shot mid-flight. 17 attackers reduced to 13, 11, 8. 1 aircraft breaks through the defensive fire, diving straight at Monson. Takeshi sees it coming, calculates angle speed trajectory. Aft Bofors, target incoming bearing 180, range 1,800 yards, speed 230. He will try to pull up at last second. Do not follow the pull-up. Maintain original aim point. Trust the mathematics. The gun crew tracks the diving aircraft, fingers on triggers, every instinct screaming to follow the target's movement. The plane dives. Closer. Closer. At 300 yards it pulls up sharply, trying to come in level and strike amidships. The gunners hold their aim. fire at where the original trajectory said the plane would be. The aircraft pulls directly into the bullets. The cockpit disintegrates. The plane noses down, strikes the water 50 yards from Monson's hull. The explosion sends a column of water skyward. Spray rains across the deck, but the ship is untouched. The final 2 aircraft, seeing the slaughter break off, turn away, flee north toward their base. The guns fall silent. 17 aircraft attacked, 15 shot down. 1 mission kill on a cargo ship that's already getting the fires under control. 2 escaped. Compared to Brisbane Harbour, where 2 ships burned and 47 men died from just 9 attackers, this is a stunning victory. Whitfield removes his headset, stares at Takeshi. 88%. You said 60 to 70% success rate. Takeshi's hands are shaking. He clasps them behind his back. Conditions were favorable. Visibility excellent. Time to prepare. Combat will not always be so accommodating. Favorable? Whitfield laughs. Actual laughter. We just won a fight we should have lost. Lost it bad. And you call it favorable conditions. Around the convoy cheers erupt. Sailors shouting, horns blowing. The convoy continues toward its destination. Mission successful. But Takeshi doesn't cheer. Can't cheer. He walks to the viewport, looks down at the water. Debris floats on the surface. Burning fuel, twisted metal, and bodies. Pilots who never had a chance. 15 men dead. 15 students who learned to fly from someone just like him. He starts counting them. Committing the number to memory. 15 today. 47 from Brisbane. 62 total. 62 young men erased from existence because he shared his knowledge. Whitfield approaches, stands beside him. You did good today, consultant. I killed 15 of my own people. You saved 300 sailors on those cargo ships, saved my crew, saved yourself. Whitfield's voice softens slightly. War doesn't give us clean choices, only bloody ones. You made the right call. How do you know it was right? Because I'm standing here talking to you instead of drowning. Whitfield claps him on the shoulder. Get some rest. We dock in 2 hours. He walks away. Leaves Takeshi alone with the view. Takeshi watches the debris scatter across the water, watches it drift apart, watches it sink. Somewhere in Japan, 15 families will receive telegrams, 15 mothers will weep, 15 names will be added to war memorials, and none of them will know their sons died because a traitor taught the enemy mathematics. The guilt is crushing. But so is the alternative. If he'd stayed silent, those cargo ships would be burning right now. Hundreds of American sailors dead. And the kamikaze would continue succeeding. More ships, more deaths. On both sides, both choices covered in blood. He chose the one that spilled less. That doesn't make it right. Just less wrong. Takeshi turns away from the viewport, sits down on a supply crate, closes his eyes. That night alone in temporary quarters on Monson, Takeshi pulls out a small notebook. Something he took from the fire control station. Empty pages. He writes, Student number 1, Brisbane Harbour, June 19th, 1944. Student number 2, Brisbane Harbour, June 19th, 1944. He continues. 15 entries. Not their real names, he doesn't know those, but numbered entries, each representing like a boy who learned to fly from someone like him, each now floating dead in the Pacific because he taught Americans mathematics. He stares at the list until the numbers blur, then he adds a second column. Lives saved, estimated Brisbane 32 sailors, convoy 285 sailors, total 317. The ledger doesn't balance morally. Numbers can't measure honor or loyalty or the weight of betrayal. But mathematically, 317 lives for 15 is a profitable exchange. The thought makes him want to vomit. But he keeps writing anyway. Because if he's going to do this, he's going to account for every death, every life, keep the ledger. Someone has to remember them all. When Monson docks at Brisbane, he's escorted off under the same pretense of civilian consultant leaving after temporary assignment. No ceremony, no recognition, just a truck ride back to camp. He arrives after sunset, slips into the barracks quietly. Captain Nakamura is waiting. You were gone all day. Interrogation. In Brisbane? Takeshi's stomach drops. Someone saw him boarding Monson, or saw him return. The secret is out. I was taken to Navy headquarters for extended questioning. Nakamura steps closer. His voice drops to barely a whisper. You were on an American warship today. Multiple prisoners saw you boarding a destroyer at dawn. Saw you return this evening. He pauses. There was a battle today. Kamikaze attack on a convoy. 17 aircraft. 15 shot down. American gunners suddenly became expert marksmen. Takeshi says nothing. No denial will work now. Tell me, Lieutenant, did you teach them? Did you give them the secrets to killing our pilots? The other prisoners are listening now, every ear tuned to this conversation. Takeshi could lie, could claim he was forced, could say the Americans tortured him. But he's tired of lying. Yes. The word drops like a stone in still water. Ripples of shock spread through the barracks. I taught them how to calculate interception. With correction for human reaction time, I observed their gunnery practice. And today I provided real-time firing solutions during combat. Nakamura's face goes pale, then red, then bloodless white. You admit to treason. I admit to saving lives, both American and Japanese. You saved Americans by killing Japanese. I saved Japanese by ending missions that would have killed them anyway. Takeshi's voice rises. Every kamikaze pilot dies, Nakamura. Every single one. The only variable is whether they take Americans with them. By teaching the Americans to shoot them down, I'm preventing prolonged deaths. Quick bullet versus slow burning. Which would you choose? You're preventing glorious sacrifice for the Emperor. I'm preventing waste. Takeshi steps forward. Hiroshi Tanaka, 20 years old, killed himself crashing into USS Aaron Ward. Kenji Sato, 21, flew into defensive fire. Masao Kobayashi, 23. All of them my students, all of them taught to fly by me or by officers I trained. Maybe his voice breaks. I will not teach boys to fly just so they can die pointlessly. If Americans can shoot them down before they reach their targets, at least their deaths are quick. At least the war might end sooner, with fewer casualties on both sides. The barracks is silent. Nakamura draws himself up. I will report this to the camp commandant. You will be tried for treason. Report it. I am finished hiding. Nakamura turns and walks out. Several other prisoners follow him. Others remain staring at Takeshi with expressions ranging from horror to confusion to something that might be understanding. One prisoner, an older lieutenant named Sato, approaches. Is it true you taught them to shoot down our aircraft? Yes. And you believe this saves lives? Every kamikaze pilot who is shot down dies quickly. 1 second of pain at most. Better than burning alive trapped in wreckage for minutes or hours. Takeshi meets his gaze. I have seen both kinds of death. I know which is preferable. Sato considers this, nods slowly. My nephew flew kamikaze, crashed into an American destroyer. The ship didn't sink. He died for nothing, burned to death in the cockpit, while the Americans watched. He walks away. Takeshi sits on his bunk, waits for the consequences. They come at midnight. Guards enter the barracks, haul Takeshi to his feet, march him across the compound to the isolation cells, a concrete box barely large enough to stand, no light, no ventilation, a bucket in the corner. They throw him inside, lock the door, darkness, complete and absolute. Takeshi sits with his back against the wall, lets his eyes adjust. Not that there's anything to see. He thinks about his notebook. Hidden under his bunk. 15 names, 317 lives saved. The mathematics are starting to balance, not morally, but numerically. He closes his eyes and waits for morning. Outside, the war continues. And somewhere in the Pacific, a young pilot climbs into a cockpit for the first time, not knowing that the mathematics of his death have already been calculated by a traitor who tried to save him by teaching the enemy how to kill him faster. The logic is insane. But it's the only logic that makes sense anymore. 3 days in the isolation cell, no food, only water passed through a slot in the door twice daily. No communication, just darkness and the sound of his own breathing. Takeshi loses track of time, sleeps when exhaustion overtakes him, wakes when dreams of falling aircraft jolt him back to consciousness. On the 3rd day, the door opens. Light floods in, blinding. Takeshi shields his eyes. 2 guards grab his arms, haul him upright. His legs nearly buckle. 72 hours sitting on concrete has left him weak. They drag him across the compound. Not to the administration building, to the medical tent. Inside, Lieutenant Commander Stockwell waits. His face is carefully neutral. "Leave us," he tells the guards. They hesitate. Stockwell's voice hardens. "Now!" The guards exit. Stockwell closes the tent flap, turns to Takeshi. "Nakamura filed a formal complaint with the camp commandant, accused you of providing military intelligence to the enemy, demanded a tribunal." Takeshi says nothing. His throat is too dry. Stockwell pours water from a canteen, hands it over. "Drink slowly." Takeshi drinks. The water tastes like metal and salvation. "The commandant wants you transferred to a punishment facility in New South Wales. Maximum security, no contact with other prisoners, no work details, just a cell until the war ends." Stockwell pauses. "I convinced him to delay the transfer." "Why?" "Because intelligence intercepted Japanese communications. They're planning another strike. Bigger this time. 35 to 40 aircraft. Target is the supply depot at Townsville." Stockwell pulls out a map. "Every ship in the northern convoy route docks there. If they destroy the depot, our entire supply chain collapses. And you want me to help defend it?" "I need you to help defend it. The gun crews at Townsville have had minimal training with your correction factors. 3 days of classroom instruction, no live fire. They're not ready." Takeshi sets down the canteen. "Nakamura has turned the prisoners against me. Half of them think I am a traitor. The other half are too frightened to defend me. If I help you again and somehow return, they will kill me." "Then don't return. Stay with the American units. We'll process you as a defector." "A defector?" The word tastes worse than the metal water. "So I become officially what I already am. A man without country." Stockwell sits down on a supply crate. "You saved approximately 300 sailors 4 days ago. The convoy made it through with minimal casualties because of your mathematics. That counts for something. It counts for 15 dead Japanese pilots, 62 total including Brisbane, students who trusted their instructors to prepare them for honorable combat, not suicide missions ended by their own teacher. They were going to die anyway, Yamada. Kamikaze is a death sentence. The only question is whether they take others with them." "I know." Takeshi's voice is quiet. "I know the logic, I run the calculations, but logic does not ease the weight of killing." Stockwell pulls out a folder, opens it. Inside, photographs. The convoy from 4 days ago, sailors standing on deck, waving at the camera. Alive. Whole. These men have families, wives, children, parents who won't receive telegrams because you taught us mathematics. He slides another photo across. "This is Seaman Marcus Chen, 22 years old, served on one of the cargo ships you helped protect. He's getting married next month. The wedding happens because you chose to help. This is guilt manipulation. This is reality." Stockwell closes the folder. "I'm not asking you to like what you're doing. I'm asking you to recognize that your choice saves more lives than it costs. Mathematics can be made to say anything. 62 deaths versus 317 lives saved. The equation appears to balance, but I cannot calculate the value of honor, cannot quantify betrayal. Some variables have no numerical solution." Stockwell stands. "The strike on Townsville happens in approximately 48 hours. I'm taking a team up there tomorrow to prepare defenses. You can come with us, or you can go to the punishment facility and spend the rest of the war in a cell. He heads toward the tent flap, pauses. Either way, men are going to die. The question is, how many? He leaves. Takeshi sits alone in the medical tent, stares at the photographs. Marcus Chen, 22, getting married, alive because 15 Japanese pilots are dead. The weight remains. 20 hours later, Takeshi is on a transport plane heading north to Townsville. He wears American civilian clothes, sits in the back with supply crates and medical equipment. Stockwell sits up front with 3 other officers. No guards, no restraints. They're treating him as a consultant now, not a prisoner. The shift in status feels surreal, as if changing clothes changes what he is. It doesn't. He's still a traitor, just wearing a different uniform. The plane lands at Townsville Airfield at 1400 hours. The supply depot sprawls across the coastline. Warehouses, fuel tanks, ammunition bunkers, repair facilities, everything the Northern Pacific Fleet needs to maintain operations. A single successful strike here could cripple American logistics for months. Stockwell leads Takeshi to the gunnery command post, a converted warehouse overlooking the harbor. Inside, maps cover every wall. Radio equipment, radar stations, fire control computers. A Navy captain waits for them. Captain Theodore Garfield, 53 years old, face weathered by decades at sea. He looks at Takeshi with undisguised suspicion. This is the consultant. His tone suggests he knows exactly what Takeshi is. Lieutenant Yamada, formerly Imperial Japanese Navy, now working with us. Stockwell's introduction is matter-of-fact. He developed the correction factor that increased our air defense success rate by 600%. 600%. Garfield's skepticism doesn't waver. That's a hell of a claim. The Brisbane convoy had 88% hit rate using his method. Standard doctrine runs 11%. Stockwell pulls out the after-action report. The data speaks for itself. Garfield reads the report. His expression doesn't change, but something shifts in his eyes. Numbers don't lie. Fine. What do you need? Access to your gun crews, 8 hours of intensive training, and authority to provide real-time firing corrections during the attack. You want to put a Japanese officer in my fire control center during combat. I want to put the man who wrote the manual on kamikaze tactics in your fire control center, so when those pilots execute the formations he taught them, he can tell your gunners exactly where to aim. Garfield looks at Takeshi, studies him for a long moment. You trained kamikaze pilots. I trained pilots to fly. The Navy converted them to kamikaze later. I taught 43 students over 11 years. At least 18 are confirmed dead now, flying into ships, dying for achievements that benefit no one. They died for their emperor. They died because I taught them to fly well enough that the emperor could waste them efficiently. If I can prevent more waste, I will do so. Yay. Something in Garfield's expression softens, just slightly. You have your 8 hours. Make them count. The training begins immediately. 72 gunners from 16 different weapons positions, Bofors crews, Oerlikon crews, even the 5-inch gun teams. Takeshi stands at the front of the warehouse. No chalkboard this time, just a large map of the harbor and the sky above it. Townsville will be attacked from the northeast. Aircraft will approach at low altitude to avoid radar detection. They will climb to 3,000 feet, approximately 15 miles out, then dive in formation. He traces the approach path on the map. Standard kamikaze formation is 6 groups of 6 aircraft each, 36 total, but intelligence suggests 40 aircraft. This means they are adding a command flight, 4 aircraft that will coordinate the attack but not participate in the initial dive. A gunner raises his hand. Why tell us their plan? Won't they change it? If they know we know, they cannot change it. The formation requires precise timing and spacing. Pilots train for months on specific approach angles and speeds. To change the plan now would cause confusion and mission failure. Takeshi taps the map. They will come exactly as I describe. The only variable is when. For the next 6 hours, he walks them through scenarios, shows them the mathematics, demonstrates the correction factor, runs them through practice calculations until the equations become instinct. Distance divided by speed equals time. Subtract 0.8 seconds for reaction delay. Adjust for wind. Adjust for target altitude. Fire early. Trust the mathematics. By 2200 hours, the gunners are exhausted but competent. They understand the theory. Whether they can execute under fire remains to be seen. Takeshi dismisses them, stands alone in the warehouse, stares at the map. Somewhere out there, 40 pilots are preparing, running through their own training, checking aircraft, writing final letters home, not knowing that their teacher has betrayed them, not knowing that one of them, his best student, is about to discover the truth in the worst possible way. The attack comes at 06:15 the next morning. Radar picks up the formations 60 miles out, exactly where Takeshi predicted, exactly the numbers he predicted. 40 aircraft, 6 groups of 6. One command flight of 4. Takeshi stands in the fire control center with Stockwell and Garfield. Below them, gun crews scramble to battle stations. All crews report ready, the communications officer announces. Garfield picks up the microphone. This is Captain Garfield. Enemy aircraft inbound. Estimated contact in 12 minutes. Gun crews will execute correction factor procedures as trained. Fire discipline will be maintained. Trust your training. Trust your mathematics.
Ning, he sets down the microphone, looks at Takeshi. If this doesn't work, a lot of men are about to die. If it does not work, I die with them. I am standing in a warehouse full of ammunition during an air attack. Garfield almost smiles. Almost. The minutes crawl past. Takeshi watches the radar screen, watches the contacts creep closer. 40 miles. 30 miles. 20 miles. Visual contact. The lookout's voice crackles over the radio.
Multiple aircraft, low altitude, bearing 045. Takeshi moves to the window, sees them, dark specks against the dawn sky. They're climbing now, rising from wave-top height to attack altitude, exactly as he predicted. 3,000 feet. They level off, begin their approach run. And Takeshi sees something that makes his blood freeze. The lead aircraft, command flight, the formation pattern. He recognizes it, not just the general tactics, the specific execution. The precise spacing, the exact angle of approach. He taught this, personally, in 1943, to an advanced class of senior pilots. One of his own students is leading this attack. And Takeshi knows exactly who it is. Lieutenant Masao Kobayashi, age 23. Top of his class, brilliant pilot, the one Takeshi personally recommended for advanced training, the one now coordinating an attack that Takeshi is about to destroy. They're splitting formation, the radar operator calls. 6 groups breaking to attack vectors. Takeshi forces himself to focus, grabs the microphone. All crews, this is Yamada. First group approaching from northeast, range 6,000 yards, speed 190. Dive angle 42 degrees, calculate intercept, subtract correction factor, wait for my mark. The first group of 6 aircraft begins their dive. Takeshi counts in his head, calculates trajectory, wind speed, target altitude, mark, fire. The guns open up. Streams of tracers arcing skyward. The lead aircraft flies directly into the barrage, disintegrates. Burning debris tumbles toward the harbor. Second aircraft, hit, explodes midair. Third aircraft, hit, cartwheels out of control, crashes into the water 200 yards offshore. Fourth aircraft, the pilot tries to evade, pulls up sharply. Takeshi adjusts. Sector 3 guns, target pulling up. He will level at 2,000 feet. Do not follow the climb. Aim at 2,000 feet. Level flight path. Fire. The guns adjust. Fire at empty air. The aircraft levels out exactly where Takeshi said. Flies directly into the bullets. Shreds apart. Fifth aircraft, hit. Sixth aircraft. This one is good. The pilot weaves, adjusts altitude constantly, making himself a difficult target, but Takeshi knows this evasion pattern. He taught it. Weaving target will reverse direction every 3 seconds. Wait for the reversal. Fire at the reversal point, not the current position. The gunners wait. The aircraft weaves left, then right, then left again. On the fourth weave, the guns fire. The aircraft reverses directly into the stream of bullets. The cockpit shatters. The plane noses down. 6 aircraft, 6 kills. The second wave attacks, comes in from a different angle, trying to overwhelm the defenses. But Takeshi has seen this tactic before, knows the counter. Second group is faint. They will pull up before reaching target range. Real threat is third group coming from the west, shift fire to western sector. The second group dives, gun crews track them, fingers on triggers at 2,000 yards just as Takeshi predicted they pull up, climb away, and the third group screams in from the west diving at maximum speed, but the guns are already tracking them, already adjusted. Fire. 4 aircraft down in the first 10 seconds, the remaining 2 break off. Try to escape. Don't make it. Third and fourth waves suffer similar losses. The mathematics are relentless. Every prediction accurate, every correction factor perfect. The gun crews execute flawlessly, trust the numbers, fire early, kill efficiently. By 0630, 28 aircraft are down. Burning wreckage scattered across the harbor approaches. The remaining 12 aircraft, seeing the slaughter, break formation, turn back toward their base. But the command flight doesn't retreat. The 4 lead aircraft maintain their position, observing, analyzing. Takeshi watches them through binoculars, sees them circle at 6,000 feet, safe altitude, beyond effective gun range. Then one aircraft breaks from the formation, begins a diving attack, not toward the supply depot, not toward the ships, toward the fire control center, toward Takeshi. Single aircraft inbound, the radar operator shouts. Bearing 090, speed 240, diving. Garfield grabs the microphone. All guns target the lone aircraft, converging fire. The guns swing toward the new threat, track the diving plane, but Takeshi is still watching through binoculars, sees the aircraft's markings, sees the way the pilot adjusts pitch and yaw. And he knows Lieutenant Masao Kobayashi, his best student, the one he taught everything, the one he recommended for command, the one now diving straight at him at 240 knots. Fire, Garfield orders. The guns open up, tracers converge on the diving aircraft, but Kobayashi is better than the others, faster, more skilled. He weaves through the defensive fire like water flowing around rocks. 1,200 yards, 1,800. Takeshi can see the cockpit now, can see Kobayashi's face behind the canopy glass. Their eyes meet. Recognition flashes across Kobayashi's expression, shock, then understanding, then something that looks like betrayal. He knows. Somehow he knows his teacher is here, orchestrating the defense, killing his fellow pilots with mathematics they all learned together. 600 yards, the guns pour fire into the sky, hundreds of rounds per second, creating a wall of metal that nothing should survive. Kobayashi flies through it, taking hits, his aircraft trailing smoke, one wing shredded, engines sputtering, but still coming. 400 yards. Takeshi stands at the window, can't move, can't look away. This is the price. This moment, his best student diving at him, dying because of him, knowing exactly who taught the enemy to win. 200 yards, the aircraft's engine explodes. The dive becomes a death glide, no control, just momentum and gravity and one final act of defiance. 100 yards, Stockwell grabs Takeshi, yanks him away from the window. The aircraft strikes the warehouse roof, punches through. The fuel tanks rupture, explosion, fire. The impact throws Takeshi against the wall. Something heavy lands on his leg. Pain shoots up his spine. Debris rains down. Heat washes over him. Then Stockwell is dragging him toward the door, away from the flames, other officers helping, supporting his weight. They stumble outside into morning light. Behind them, the warehouse burns. Takeshi collapses on the tarmac, looks back at the wreckage. Kobayashi's aircraft is embedded in the roof. Flames consuming what's left of it. His student, his responsibility. The boy he taught to fly with precision and honor. Dead. And in those final seconds before impact, Kobayashi had looked directly at him, had known. The betrayal in those eyes will haunt Takeshi forever. Garfield kneels beside him. "Can you walk?" "My leg." "Medic." Garfield waves over a corpsman. "Get him stabilized." The medic examines Takeshi's leg. "Not broken. Severe bruising, possible fracture, need X-rays to be sure." Around them, the harbor is quiet. The attack is over. 40 aircraft sent, 29 shot down, 11 retreated. The supply depot is intact. No ships hit, minimal casualties, a complete defensive victory. Except for the burning aircraft 20 yards away. Except for Masao Kobayashi, 23 years old, dead because his teacher taught Americans how to kill him, and died knowing it. They take Takeshi to the field hospital. Set his leg. Give him morphine for the pain. He lies on a cot, staring at the ceiling. Stockwell visits that evening. The preliminary count is finalized. 29 enemy aircraft destroyed, 11 retreated, 0 hits on the depot, estimated 300 American personnel saved. He pauses. Garfield is recommending you for a commendation. I do not want a commendation. I know, but you're getting recognition anyway. The Pacific Fleet wants to expand your training program. Roll out the correction factor to every air defense position in the theater. Takeshi closes his eyes. How many more will I kill? How many more will you save? Stockwell pulls up a chair, sits. The kamikaze campaign was killing us, Yamada. Your mathematics shifted the balance. Over the next 9 months, as your methods spread across the fleet, American gunners shot down 673 kamikaze aircraft using your correction factor. 673 students who learned to fly from officers like you, 673. The number hits like a physical blow. You kept count. The Navy keeps count. Every aircraft, every battle, your mathematics are in every after-action report now. Stockwell pauses. 673 pilots died quickly, clean deaths, better than burning in crashed aircraft or drowning while trapped in sinking wreckage. And 8,400 American sailors lived who would have died. 8,400. The number should mean something. Should justify everything. It doesn't. Kobayashi knew, Takeshi says quietly. In those final seconds before he hit the building. He looked at me through the canopy glass. He recognized me. He knew I was there. Knew what I had done. Stockwell has no answer for that. They sit in silence. Outside, work crews clear debris, repair damaged buildings, catalogue the wreckage of 29 aircraft. Finally, Stockwell speaks again. What do you want to do now? The war won't last forever. Maybe another year, 2 at most. After that, you'll need to make choices. Return to Japan. Would they have you? Takeshi laughs. Bitter sound. No, I am dead to them. Worse than dead. I am the man who taught the enemy to win, who killed 673 of their pilots. Then stay here, defect officially. We can arrange citizenship, new identity. You'd be valuable in the post-war period. Helping design air defense systems, training programs. Helping America prepare for the next war. Helping prevent the next war by making defense so effective that attack becomes pointless. Stockwell leans forward. You understand both sides, Yamada. That's rare, valuable. The world is going to need people who can bridge cultures, translate not just language, but understanding. I am a traitor to one culture, a tool to the other. I belong nowhere. Then make a new place. Build something from what you've learned. Takeshi opens his eyes, looks at Stockwell. And if I cannot live with what I have done, then you figure out how to live anyway, because the alternative is letting those deaths mean nothing. Stockwell stands. Get some rest. We'll talk more tomorrow. He leaves. Takeshi lies in the dark, thinks about Kobayashi, about Hiroshi and Kenji, and all the others whose names he'll never know, about Marcus Chen getting married, about 8,400 sailors who lived, 673 deaths. 8,400 lives saved. The equation works on paper, but mathematics cannot calculate guilt, cannot quantify the weight of looking into your student's eyes as he dies knowing you betrayed him. Some variables cannot be solved for. 3 weeks later, Takeshi stands before a US military tribunal. Not for trial, for defection proceedings. He renounces his Japanese citizenship, swears allegiance to the United States, becomes officially what he already was, a man without country. They give him new papers, new identity. He keeps his first name, but takes an American surname suggested by Stockwell. Takeshi Yamada becomes Takeshi Baker. Baker. Like a man who creates bread, who feeds people, who makes something useful from raw materials. The irony isn't lost on him. He's assigned to the Naval Training Center in San Diego, teaches air defense mathematics to gunnery officers, develops training curricula, writes technical manuals. The war continues. His methods spread throughout the Pacific Fleet. Kamikaze success rates plummet from 40% to 11%. Thousands of sailors live who would have died. He counts them, keeps a journal, tries to balance the ledger. August 1945. Japan surrenders. The war ends. Takeshi reads the news in a training room in San Diego, surrounded by Americans celebrating, cheering, crying with relief. He feels nothing. The country of his birth is defeated. The country of his adoption is victorious, and he belongs to neither. September 1945. He applies for discharge from military service. Granted, they offer him a position with Douglas Aircraft, civilian contractor, good pay, important work. He declines, wants distance from anything military. Instead, he moves to a small town in central California, gets a job teaching mathematics at a high school, lives quietly, attracts no attention. Oh, the students don't know their teacher once calculated the deaths of hundreds. They just know Mr. Baker is strict about showing your work and always subtracts points for rounding errors. Precision matters, he tells them, in mathematics and in life. Years pass. 1950, 1955, 1960. Takeshi ages, hair grays, face lines. The limp from his injured leg becomes permanent. He never marries, never has children, lives alone in a small house with a garden where he grows vegetables with the same precision he once used to calculate interception trajectories. Sometimes former students visit, thank him for teaching them mathematics, for preparing them for college, for showing them that precision matters. He nods, accepts their gratitude, never tells them what his precision once meant. 1971. A letter arrives, postmark from Virginia, inside a handwritten note on naval stationery. Mr. Baker, you probably don't remember me, Eugene Whitfield. I was gunnery officer on USS Monson in 1944. You taught me mathematics that saved my ship and my life. I'm retiring next month after 27 years of service. During that time, I taught your correction factor to 17 different gun crews on 5 different ships. The Navy estimates your methods saved approximately 2,400 sailors during my career alone. I wanted you to know that your work mattered, still matters. My grandson is starting at the Naval Academy this fall. He'll learn air defense theory. Your theory, your mathematics. You gave more to this country than most citizens ever will. I hope you know that. With respect and gratitude, Captain Eugene Whitfield, USN, retired. Takeshi reads the letter 3 times, folds it carefully, places it in a drawer with other correspondence. 2,400 lives. He adds the number to his journal, updates the ledger. Total estimated lives saved through correction factor methodology, 8,400 sailors. Total confirmed enemy aircraft destroyed using his methods, 673. The weight remains, 1984. Takeshi is 76 years old, retired from teaching, spends his days in the garden, growing tomatoes and remembering equations. The high school names their mathematics building after him. Baker Hall, a plaque outside, lists his years of service, his dedication to education. It says nothing about kamikaze, about Brisbane or Townsville, about Kobayashi diving at him through defensive fire. The students walking past that building never know. That night, Takeshi sits in his living room, looks through old photographs, the only ones he kept. Stockwell, Whitfield, Garfield, men who became something like friends. And one other photograph, taken in 1943, his advanced pilot class, Kobayashi in the front row, smiling, proud, trusting his instructor. Takeshi stares at that photograph for a long time. Then he writes a letter, his last one. To anyone who finds this, my name is Takeshi Yamada. I was born in Tokyo in 1908. I served in the Imperial Japanese Navy from 1930 to 1944. I trained 43 pilots and 62 gunners. I taught them to fly with precision and honor. Then I taught their enemies how to kill them. The mathematics say I saved 8,400 lives. The mathematics say I ended the kamikaze campaign and shortened the war. The mathematics say my betrayal was justified. But mathematics cannot calculate redemption, cannot quantify forgiveness, cannot solve for peace. I have lived 39 years trying to balance an equation that has no solution, trying to justify the unjustifiable, trying to make sense of choosing between two kinds of death. I do not know if what I did was right. I only know it was necessary. And that necessity has cost me everything except life itself. If there is a lesson here, it is this: sometimes the right choice destroys you. Sometimes saving lives requires losing your soul. I die with no country, no family, no absolution. But 8,400 people lived who would have died. That is the only truth I have left. Takeshi Yamada, Lieutenant, Imperial Japanese Navy, also known as Takeshi Baker, teacher of mathematics, February 11th, 1984. He seals the letter, places it with his will. He closes his eyes one final time, and in the darkness behind his eyelids, he sees them all: Hiroshi, Kenji, Kobayashi. The 43 students whose names he remembers, the 630 whose names he never knew, and behind them 8,400 faces, the ones who lived: Marcus Chen at his wedding, Whitfield's grandson at the Naval Academy, sailors who went home to their families. The mathematics balanced, but Takeshi Yamada never did. He dies at 03:47 hours. Alone, the garden outside his window full of tomatoes he'll never harvest. The equations in his head, finally, mercifully, silent. 3 weeks later, Takeshi dies quietly in his sleep. Heart failure. Peaceful end. The funeral is small: former students, a few neighbors, the high school principal who speaks about Mr. Baker's dedication to education and precision. No military honors, no recognition of service, no mention of the war, just a mathematics teacher being laid to rest. The letter is found during estate processing, forwarded to the Department of the Navy as specified in his will, 2009. The Navy declassifies wartime documents related to Pacific air defense improvements. Among them a file labeled Yamada Correction Factor, Development and Implementation. 400 pages detailing the mathematics, the training programs, the combat results. A final notation from Admiral Chester Nimitz dated November 1945. Lieutenant Yamada's defection and subsequent cooperation provided the United States Navy with air defense capabilities that reduced kamikaze effectiveness by 73%. Estimated impact shortened Pacific campaign by 4 to 6 months. Estimated American casualties prevented 8,400 naval personnel. Estimated Japanese casualties prevented 670 pilots who would have died in suicide attacks. Recommendation: posthumous recognition when declassified. However, political sensitivities with post-war Japan preclude public acknowledgement. Lieutenant Yamada's contribution will remain classified until such time as disclosure serves diplomatic interests rather than threatens them. His sacrifice and service are noted with gratitude. The file is released to historical archives, catalogued, made available to researchers. Most ignore it. Just another technical document in an ocean of wartime paperwork. But the National Museum of the Pacific War in Fredericksburg, Texas takes notice. 2024. The museum creates a small exhibit: The Man Who Taught America to Defend the Sky. It includes Takeshi's photograph, his service record, excerpts from his final letter, the statistics, the impact assessment, and a quote displayed prominently, "Mathematics cannot calculate redemption, but 8,400 people lived who would have died. That is the only truth I have left." Visitors walk past, read the story, many take photographs. Some cry, most don't understand the weight of it, the impossible choice. But a few do, veterans mostly, people who've made choices in war, people who understand that sometimes saving lives requires sacrificing everything else. They stand before that exhibit longer than others, read every word, stare at Takeshi's photograph, and they understand that heroism sometimes looks like betrayal, that doing the right thing can cost you your soul. Takeshi Yamada saved 8,400 lives and died alone, unforgiven by the country he abandoned, unacknowledged by the country he served, a traitor to one, a tool to the other, a hero to neither, just a man who chose mathematics over loyalty, who chose lives over honor, who chose necessity over peace, and paid the price every day for 39 years. The exhibit ends with a simple question: what would you have done? Most visitors walk away without answering, because the honest answer is we don't know, and we hope we never have to find out.